Okay. So also, thank you so much, Rashida. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Mims. I have been in the clinical research industry for 4 years. I am a clinical studies coordinator at MD Anderson Cancer Center. I just transitioned from a senior research coordinator last week, so it's very new. But like I said, I'm at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas.
Thank you so much, LaRaz.
Hi guys, my name is LaRaz Leggett. I'm a clinical research coordinator at the Baltimore VA Medical Health Center through the Baltimore Research and Education Foundation. I've been in clinical research now for about 6 years, and I've been in the industry as a CRC for about 3 years.
Thank you so much. So let's just dive right in. LaRaz, could you tell us what exactly what would you describe as what is a clinical research coordinator?
So I like to say a clinical research coordinator at the site level is the heart of the clinical trial. We're at the front line. We're responsible for executing the protocol correctly and adhering to regulations and guidelines as while we're executing the protocol. And it's our job to make sure that all the pieces kind of fit together, whether it's getting the pharmacy to communicate with the lab or the lab to communicate with the investigator, or us trying to communicate with the sponsor. So the CRC is kind of like the person trying to get everything to come together to make sure that the protocol is executed correctly.
Thank you, LaRaz. Jennifer.
Yes, just like Laura said, she said it's the heart. I actually was going to go with the backbone. So both play a huge role. And so we are basically performing the intake assessments after a subject has signed the informed consent. And we help maintain all the documents and records of the clinical trial as the patient goes through the clinical trial.
Thank you. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but I used to be a CRC. So I felt, and especially just echoing what Jennifer and LaRaz said, a CRC is the glue, in my opinion, that holds everything together. I feel like the CRC, in my opinion, maybe I'm a little biased, but the hardest working person when it comes to the clinical trials and really holding everything together. Oh, LaRaz, you're clapping, you agree? I don't feel like a lot of times that CRCs get enough credit for the amount of work that they do. I remember when I was a CRC, I had 50 studies at one time. And so kudos to you ladies, because I know that it is a hard job, but it's also rewarding. So thank you so much, ladies.
Very much so.
So how do you enter in the field without experience? Because a lot of people are interested in becoming a CRC, but they don't have experience. Jennifer?
So for me, and I hear people say this a lot, they stumbled into this industry, and that was exactly what happened to me. I was working in a more of an administrative role at one of the clinics at MD Anderson, and one of the physicians came up to me, and who is now actually my PI, and she asked me, she says, I'm going to have some openings in research. Would you be interested? And the first thing I thought was, what can I do in research? And she says, well, I'm going to be extending my clinical trials, and I think that you would be great at assisting me with that. So I said, I don't know anything about research. And so she told me to search, like Google search clinical research. And she said, one good thing about this is that this can be a good career move for you. And I was, shocked when she said career, because I was thinking like maybe this would just lead to a new job. But she was right. I went home and I researched clinical research, and I saw all the opportunities that that came up and all the different avenues that you can go to once you were inside of the industry. So for anyone who wants to get in without having that background, I would definitely say just networking. That was the biggest thing for me. And networking and just you know, researching it, and I was very happy once I got into this industry, and here I am now.
Thank you, Jennifer. Laraz.
So I actually got into research when I was in undergrad, my junior year. I had no idea what research was, what research methods was, and I kind of learned a little bit of the ins and outs of how to design a study and, you know, the outer shell of what clinical trials are. But I actually took a more medical route. So I was a medical assistant. I was interested in being hands-on with patients, but still being able to be immersed within the field of research and being able to learn new things, being able to collect data, analyze data, and find out more information from that data. And so the more I got into the research field, the more I realized that a lot of people in clinical research come from so many different fields and avenues. And I've met people who are in dentist school and they're in clinical research, and they got in it through their love of teeth, or a lot of nurses or people interested in healthcare in general. There's so many different ways. I work with a physical therapist who's now a CRC in oncology. So a lot of people stumble upon research, whether it's, you know, someone telling you about clinical trials, or, you know, you just stumbling upon it through other avenues like networking.
That's so true. Most people I talk to have stumbled into this industry. And for me, I also stumbled into clinical research. I remember running into a college classmate, and she told me about clinical research, because clinical research wasn't a career option when we was in college. And I'm finding out that's the case for a lot of college students that graduated long time ago. I won't say my age, but long time ago that wasn't discussed. If you were a biology major, it was pretty much become a teacher or go to medical school. So I'm just so glad that these are options now that are available, and the fact that you don't need a lot of degrees to make a good salary.
I agree. In addition to what you just said, our clinical research department was so small at my university that I didn't find out about it until I was graduating. And I would have had to redo 2 years in order to graduate with clinical research. It wasn't talked about at all in the STEM community, in the science community. It wasn't talked about, period. So that's important.
Yes, I feel like clinical research is left out of the STEM. You know, they talk about so many different other careers, but it seems like clinical research kind of gets the short end of the stick when it comes to talking about STEM careers. So let's talk about your typical work day. Laraz, can you tell us, what do you typically do? I know you probably wear so many different hats, but if you could just describe, what do you do on a typical work day?
So it depends what type of site you work at, whether you work for a pharmacology center or somewhere like a hospital, like Johns Hopkins per se. So depending on where you're at, you may see patients yourself, or you may have different departments that do everything. So where I work, we see the patients ourselves. We're collecting specimens, we're collecting data. Once we see the patients, you know, we're going to process the specimens that we collected. We're responsible for making sure it gets to the sponsor. We're responsible for making sure that any data we collect gets put in the system. We're responsible for reconciling any data or any questions that the sponsor, the CRO, or our monitor may have. We're going to meetings. We're creating documents. We're making sure that we're chasing down people for signatures, like our investigators. So it just depends on that day. Honestly, it really just depends on what that day entails, of, what I do on a typical day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Laraz. Jennifer?
I think we working at the same place, Laraz, because my day goes exactly like that. So since I transitioned into my new role, I am now working hybrid. So if I'm working at home, I am constantly checking my email, since that is the biggest form of communication for us working remotely. And I am checking to make sure that all my patients have, making sure there's no new updates from overnight. And I am still entering data and analyzing data, like Laura said. And so I have to make sure that I have no open queries. And if I do have open queries, I want to make sure that they're answered in within the time frame that the sponsor requires. I am also going to meetings all day, every day as well. Those meetings can range between department meetings, PI meetings, also meetings with my fellow coordinators. We have a weekly meeting that we have together. And if I'm on site, I do work at a hospital. So if I'm on site, I will see patients, and I am consenting them for clinical trials. And after you consent them, you have to make sure you source document everything. And so a lot of documentation, and then also putting in lab work for patients. And then we also are collecting samples. So I have to go to the lab a lot during the day. So you are very busy. You definitely want to stay organized and on top, because things can easily fall through the cracks. So organization skills and communication skills are very important.
Yes, being organized and having different tools to stay organized is so important. I didn't find out about OneNote until, using OneNote until I actually started working in clinical research. But once I got a handle on how to use OneNote, that I use it for everything. I mean, I don't even know if everyone knows these features. Like anyone I meet, I'm like, do you know that OneNote, if you put it in there, you can send it to your email and you can format the cells. So yes, OneNote, and I know the ladies who probably give other tools that they use in order to stay organized as a CRC, but also sounds like time management, because you're doing so many different tasks. So I know that's important, and you can easily get off task if someone is saying, hey, I need you to do this, or hey, I need you to do this. So being able to stop what you're doing and pick it back up, and just a jack of all trades, I should say, for being a CRC. So how many studies are you ladies currently managing? Jennifer?
I'm currently managing around 13 studies right now. Out of those 13 studies, they range, between different phases, from phase 1 to phase 3. So we're doing a lot of, checking efficacy and safety in these clinical trials. I also have some observational studies that I have. So they're not really treatment. So, and then I have some minimal risk studies that requires questionnaires and surveys for patients. And so 13 studies is a lot. And if you said you had like 50, I can't imagine that. But I think the most I've ever been up to at one time was about 15 to 17. But right now, currently, I have 13. And they're all oncology-based studies.
Oh, yeah. Oncology is a different beast. My studies that I had, the 50 studies that I had, they were all breast oncology studies. So we were short staffed. So I feel like I was doing 2 or 3 jobs with the amount of studies that I had. What about you, Laraz?
So all of the studies that I've had have ranged from phase 1 inpatient studies to phase 4, actually. And so unlike Danielle and Jennifer, I've only had about 4 to 5 studies at a time, being the only coordinator. But unfortunately, for each of those studies, you have about 100 to 300 participants, and you have to see each and every one of them. You have to call each and every one of them. You have to make sure your staff is trained on every single amendment to the protocol. So at certain sites, I've seen where they have departments where each department handles one of those things, but at other sites where you are wearing, the hat of all trades, you kind of have to follow that for each participant, and you just, want to make sure that the quality of your work is up to par, because you will get checked on it.
Yes, absolutely. I can. Yes, if you make I shouldn't say that. I won't say that. Okay, so with the CRCs, I know everyone doesn't see patients. I was a CRC and my responsibility was just regulatory. So within the CRC role, there are many different opportunities where, I know for me at my job, we had the CRCs that were just reviewing the patient documents, and then we had the CRCs that were reviewing like the 1572s, the delegation log, and different things. So, if you have an area that you're interested in, you can always see, okay, and ask questions too if you're interested in being a CRC. If you're interested in patient contact, if you're not interested in patient contact, there are different roles that are available. So I am going to go ahead and
Yes, I want to add one thing to that, because that's so true. Not all CRCs see patients. So when I first became a coordinator, I focused more on data, and that was all I did. And so it was basically entering data, extracting data. So I knew I wanted to have patient contact. That was really important to me. So that's how I transitioned. That's how I'm setting it up for me, so I could be able to consent patients and things like that. And like you said, some people don't like the patient contact. They like to sit back and, some people like in front of the computer analyzing data, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you could still be a part of the team, and you're still helping run this well-oiled machine, so definitely,
Yes.
You don't have to see patients.
In addition to that, make sure when you are looking to become a CRC that you understand where you're working and the responsibilities of your role. Because if you're not, comfortable with drawing blood, if you're not comfortable with administering medications, or, you don't like processing labs, you don't want to be in a laboratory. There are some days I'm never by my computer. So you just want to make sure that whatever CRC job you get, that it's, the responsibilities kind of match what you're interested in and what you like to work with.
Thank you so much, ladies. I'm going to hand this over to Rashida.
Thank you. Laraz, I definitely agree with you. You have to have alignment with what you truly want to do, because it is can be a very patient-centered position, and you are essentially the face of the site. And if you are not enjoying the work that you do every day, patients will definitely be able to see that. And you don't want to make, patients uncomfortable. I mean, clinical research is sometimes very foreign to patients anyway. And so you want to create that environment where they're comfortable and you're comfortable. So definitely make sure that you are very aware of the environment that you will work in as a CRC, and then also how it's set up. I think everyone had kind of a different experience, but as a coordinator, I actually mainly worked with data entry, and we had research nurses who were more patient facing. And I too was in oncology. And patients would text the nurses, they would call the nurses, and that was really my introduction into clinical research. And so when I would see that, I immediately was like, I don't think this is something for me, because I want to actually be able to separate, being with patients versus being at home. And then also, working from home now, there's still like some, challenges with separation, but having to be that point of contact for patients is really important, especially if they are having, adverse events, and you want to be very, not so available, but you want to make sure that there is someone at least on site that is available for them when they need it. So I want to actually know, depending on how your site is set up, what are the different roles that you work with? Because Laraz, I know you say you're one coordinator on the team, and then I know some teams are larger where you have the regulatory department or coordinator, and then you have, the research nurse. So I'm curious, Jennifer, how is your team set up, and what roles do you typically interact with?
Okay, so with my my team, I have, of course, you have your PI, and I do have mid-level providers, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants. I also have research fellow research coordinators and registered nurses that are research nurses. But we also do deal with other departments at our institution. We have our regulatory coordinators. At one point, the data coordinators were doing regulatory, but now we have regulatory coordinators. So that helped out a lot. Regulatory, there's a lot of documentation in regulatory, and that can be very time consuming. And so now we have regulatory coordinators to help. I also have research assistants who assist me in collecting some of my samples. So that is a big help for me. We also work with different labs. We have a histology lab if I'm needing to get archival tissue for a patient or have blocks made for a patient. They assist me with that. And then we also have our clinical research lab that takes care of all of our patients' PKs in central laboratory. So that's also very helpful. We do a lot with them as well. So like I said, everyone works together to make that protocol happen. So many different departments.
Yeah, having a team is such a great asset. So Laraz, I'm actually curious to know what your experience is, and who or what roles do you typically interact with on a daily basis?
So one of my my first job in industry is very similar to Jennifer, where we had different departments that handled everything, and we kind of just coordinated with different departments and made sure that they talked to each other and everything. We had a team. Where I'm at now, we still have a team, but it depends on what study you're on. So, I may be on a study where it's just me, but then I may be on another study where I have a co-CRC and a different PI. So it just depends. But I'm responsible for the regulatory documents and making sure that that gets to the CRO. I'm responsible for talking to the lab and making sure that we're shipping the specimens to the lab. But we're working with the pharmacy. We're working with the mailroom people. They've become our best friends. You'd be surprised how many people you interact with on a day-to-day basis. But if your specimens, which is the data and the heart of the operation, if that does not get to where it needs to be, all of your hard work goes out of the window. So if those mailroom people make sure your package gets where it needs to go, then you make sure you are nice to those people, because it's important to build relationships with your whole team and with each department, because the nicer you are and the more pleasant it is to be around you, the more willing they are to help you and, get your signatures and your deliverables, and just helps to make everything go smoothly. So a team is important.
It is. And you wouldn't believe how many sites I've gone to as a monitor where there were packages lost in the mail room, and there were usually like a few people, and that would be like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, I'm just going to take it on over to them. But like, you lose kids, you lose IP coming in sometimes. And a lot of the times it's, time sensitive things. So like if you, ordered a kit and then you can't find the kit, it's like, what are you to do? So definitely building and keeping those relationships with everyone at the site is extremely important, in making sure that it all works together to ensure that those patients are getting what they need.
And you have to be careful because for me and my studies with oncology based, if I collect a biopsy from you, it has to be sent out per the protocol in a certain amount of time. So if things aren't sent out and so and so in the mailroom doesn't send it out, now I have to deal with deviations and other things. So everyone truly has to work together to make this happen.
Definitely. So how do you manage all of that with having the different team members and having, regulatory, if you're the person who does submissions, and Laraj, you were saying that some of your studies, you have hundreds of patients. So like, how are you able to really manage all of that? Like, what are some of the tools that you're using for that?
So like Danielle said, OneNote. Also, if you go to my desk, there are sticky notes everywhere. So definitely sticky notes, folders. In my emails, I have different separate folders for each study that I am working on. Same with all of my folder files. And I also have a list of, everyone that's important to contact. So if I have an issue with shipping, I know who to contact. If I can't get a kit, I know who to contact. If for some reason we lose a sample, I know who to contact, so it's important that you know everything in case something does happen. You can kind of figure out how to reconcile it and, help the situation.
Yeah, phone numbers are a big thing. Phone numbers, emails, so you can go directly to the person that you can get that answer to. Jennifer, I'm going to move that to you. So what are some of the tools that you use to keep track of everything?
A lot of the same ones. I'm sitting here at my desk where I work during the day when I'm remote, and I have sticky notes everywhere. And so sticky notes, definitely the folders in your email. So that way, when you do receive emails, depending on what study, you can just go ahead and move it there. That's very helpful. Also, I do a lot of Docusigning. That is very helpful for us because we are needing signatures all the time. So Docusign is a very big help. And also, like someone said, writing down phone numbers when you get them. I also I'm a person that likes to write things down. That's just the way it helps me remember things. So I have here at home, I have like individual notebooks for each study that really helps me. And so of course, I keep away from patient information in them, but just little notes to help me so I can execute the study to the fullest. So that's very helpful. But if you have to write it down, write it down. There's no shame in that. So
I'm the same way. I mean, I still have sticky notes. I'm looking at my computer right now, and it's literally like sticky notes around the whole screen.
However you gotta do
it. Something is really important, I'll put it right in the middle of my screen, so like I do not forget it throughout the day. So definitely. So we all know that good clinical practice is really important to staying up to date with regulatory items for subjects and just clinical research as a whole. Are there any other certifications you think is needed to become a CRC?
I don't think certifications are needed to become a CRC, especially right now. At this present, at this current time. If you have, so like we were saying earlier, depending on what type of role of a CRC you'd like to be, whether it's more regulatory, more towards data, or whether it's patient facing, that's your experience. So if you have experience in data collection, say with banking, you can use those transferable skills to kind of get into research. So it's kind of just dependent on the person and your experiences. However, say you are just new to research and you really want that foundation, that knowledge going into a job, it may help to look into some of those certifications or free refresher courses, to make sure you're up to date with the FDA rules and regulations and good clinical practice, and that you know what to do and what not to do, because ultimately everyone in the clinical on the clinical team, including your investigator, may not know that information. So it's important that they can come to you. The doctors are going to come to you, the nurses are going to come to you, the patients, the sponsor, everyone is going to come to you. So it's important that you have a good foundation and a lot of information about your role going into clinical research. So it's not necessarily the certifications. Every supervisor I've spoken to has said it's all about your experience. So, it just depends on your background.
And what about you, Jennifer? Did we lose her?
Sorry, guys. I think you lost me.
Okay, we can hear you though.
Okay, wonderful.
There you are.
Now you can see me. Okay, I just joined from my phone. My apologies about that. So, let's let this down. You may see a reflection now. I'm sorry. So, I'm sorry. What was the question?
So the question was, do you think that there are certifications needed to become a coordinator?
So, like LaRoz said, I don't think there are certifications needed, but I would say there are definitely a lot of trainings that are needed. And from trainings, of course, we all do like our GCP, but then you also want to make sure, like we ship a lot of samples, so you'll want to make sure like you have your IATA certificate and trainings like that. So I would definitely suggest any type of training you think that you're offered. I would definitely take it. Now, in my current role, I am now at a position where my institution will pay for me to get CCRP certified. So that's something that I'm definitely going to do, within the next year, hopefully. And so I would definitely say take any opportunity like that you can. But yeah, definitely trainings more than certificates at this point.
I definitely agree, for sure, as far as trainings, but I will say if you wait until you get the job, sometimes they will pay for you to get those certifications. So as long as you kind of, have a foundation, your job will pay for you. Like Jennifer was saying, your job will pay for you to get all of those certifications, especially if they really want you to have them.
Yes, for sure.
And that's on all different levels, not just on the site side, but sponsor side,
and then
CRO side.
Not only will they pay for it, but then you will get paid, you will get more in your salary once you get those certifications. So that's also good.
So don't go broke getting certifications before you actually get the role, guys. And I was seeing a lot of different items in the chat for free resources for like good clinical practice. And I sent everyone, I think it's NIDA, NIDA. I sent everyone who doesn't necessarily have any type of clinical research experience to that website because it is self-paced. You can take it, you can review all of the items for GCP, and then at the end, they give you a certificate. So it's really nice to put that on your resume, especially if you don't have clinical research experience, because that shows recruiters that you are willing to, step outside of your comfort zone, and also that you are willing to, show that you're doing the work even though you're not actually there. So, and it's really important just because clinical research is dealing with subjects. And so it shows very well for you to have that. So you all deal with many different pieces of the research puzzle. I would love to know, what are some of the challenges that you have experienced as a coordinator? And Laraz, I'm gonna give this one to you first.
Okay. So one of the challenges is trying to find people. So you have to remember that your studies mean everything to you, but they don't mean everything to everybody. So, while it's, important to you to get that signature from your doctor, he may have 9 other people asking him for signatures as well. So it's important to kind of time, management when you're going to get those documents. For example, don't try to go to the PI every time you have a single document. Maybe we meet him on Fridays, so let me kind of compile these things to give to him on Fridays. I know he's not in clinic then. So little things like that. So time management is extremely important, and it can be challenging at times because you have 3 different sponsors telling you that this is important. And the doctor may be telling you this part of the protocol, I want you to focus on these patients, but the sponsor may be saying, well, I need the data cleaned by Friday, so it needs to be done then. So you kind of have to prioritize which is more important. Do I need to stay late? Can I do this tomorrow? And you also have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. Protocols change every day. The way you draw blood one day and collect a specimen one day, the next day they may say, no, that's wrong. We actually want you to do it this way. So you just have to make sure that you're able to roll with the punches. So I would say that, and then also dealing with multiple personalities. So you're dealing with so many people. So it's important that, you're able to be adaptable, flexible, personable, a lot of ables in the role.
What about you, Jennifer? What are some of your challenges that you face?
I'm going to pick up where she kind of left off at with the protocols changing. That is a big one because when protocols get amended, like she said, what you were doing one day may now be taken out and you have to do it a different way. So that's very challenging because when you have so many studies and you're trying to keep up with all of those, it can get confusing. And also with your protocols, every protocol has different schedules and different time points. And so for me, with my clinical trials, I have, some of them may have different arms, arm A, arm B. Some of them, may have other crossover events that could happen, whether it's not arm A or arm B. But then, you have different time points for imaging and things like that. So you definitely want to stay organized to not confuse them. I would be lying if I did not say that I have never confused. I have, and it's going to happen, but it's all about the way that you fix those mistakes and you move forward. Also, source documenting. Do not forget to source documents. It's challenging because you're busy and you could run out of time during the day, and that's just happens. But if you don't source document, like someone told me, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And you can miss some things, with that. And so definitely working with different people, like she said, different personalities. And you're right. The days that I work at home, I might have a research assistant help me with something. Their name is not on that, mine is. So if they don't do it to the best of their ability, that can be kind of frustrating and a challenge. So I'll just get up and I'll just go to the hospital and take care of it myself. But those are all some challenges that we face every day.
In addition,
I did not like chasing down an investigator, but it's really important to understand their schedule and how they move about either during the day or during the week. They have clinics, you're probably not going to see them all day long, right? So if there's some kind of database like you need a signature for them, try to make sure you get it before, or if they have that leeway time, make sure that it is very clear when you need their time, because their time is very precious to them. And it's not necessarily that they're ducking and dodging, but I think a lot of them try to manage their time as best as possible. And being the coordinator, you are really the person who's driving a lot of the activities at the site. And you're kind of like the go-to person for protocols. It's like, yes, you have your investigator. They are knowledgeable as far as, you know, medical concerns and oversight for everything. But as the coordinator, you are the go-to person. So very important stuff. Laura, you were going to say something?
Yes. Like with all of that being said, it's a lot of responsibility, and you just have to understand you're going to make mistakes. You know, it's going to happen, like Jennifer was saying. So it's important to just learn from those mistakes. And a lot of times your site staff and your site members will understand, because the CRC role involves so many different responsibilities, tasks, and little things that can slip through the cracks when you have so many different protocols and so many different teams for those protocols.
Definitely. And I know some of the issues that I had as a coordinator, and then just on protocols throughout every level, is recruitment. So challenges with recruitment. Some sites have, you know, a recruitment specialist. Sometimes the coordinator is the person who is like the recruitment specialist, and people look to you to try and get information and gain insight into, you know, how are you able to bring these patients on to your site. So I just want to ask really quick, Jennifer, what are some of your recruitment challenges that you are seeing, and like, how are you able to overcome that as a coordinator?
So one thing that my PI and I discussed is we really wanted to get more minorities on clinical trials. And as we all know, that's not always an easy task. And so for me, when I became trained to perform the informed consent, that was very important to me. And because representation matters. And when a patient can walk into a room and see that you were there to talk to them about a clinical trial, they feel a little bit more comfortable, and they are willing to listen. Now, that does not mean that every minority patient is going to agree to a clinical trial, but we're starting the process with communication, and they are able to at least have an open mind to wanting to do that. So I only recruit for one of my clinical trials right now, and that's one thing that I see. And also just people, you know, when you walk into the room, some people have white coat syndrome. And when I walk into a room, you know, they'll say, oh, another white coat is coming in. And then when I say the word research, you can see it on their face. Sometimes they get scared. Nobody wants to be a guinea pig. And I understand that. So it's very important that we effectively talk to patients and make them feel comfortable, have empathy. And, you know, I would say that's the big, people are fearful of research.
Thank you. And my last question, and I typically ask, you know, what advice would you give someone interested in the career? But I think I want to switch it up and ask, what advice would you give your younger self in starting off in this career? Laraz?
I would probably tell myself to absorb as much knowledge as I possibly can in every aspect of the field. Kind of like looking into all the different roles in clinical research, finding out all of the different avenues that clinical research can lead to, really talking to people about different roles in clinical research, and doing as much free training that I possibly can.
And Jennifer, what about you?
Yes, I would say you know, just researching the clinical research industry. I really hate that I didn't know about this industry I've been in it 4 years, 6-7 years ago. I really enjoy what I do. And I'm like, dang, I wish I could have done this sooner, you know, but that's how it works sometimes. But I would just echo what LaRoz said. You definitely want to soak in as much as you can, network, learn as much as you can, trainings, whatever. I mean, definitely have a growth mindset in this industry. This position is a great position to start off with. You learn so much about research in this position. And I know a lot of people, they want to jump to a CRA and project management. All that is great, but I still have some people ask, you know, why did you decide to start where you started? And I said, because it's a great starting point. And like we said at the very beginning, the heartbeat and the backbone of a protocol, because you've got to understand and know protocols to do this job. And but that's what I would say. Like I said, I hate that I didn't know about this sooner, but I'm glad I'm here now.
Same. I think a lot of us feel like that. You know, I was in college doing research, but it was, you know, bench lab work. So I'm working in the lab. I'm helping PhD students with their culturing of the cells and all of that. And, you know, for some reason, human subjects research never, you know, came up in anybody's sentence or any of the internships that I did. So I definitely echo you and everyone else's sentiments about getting into the industry, you know, sooner, which is why we really try to, you know, talk to college students. You know, we have some of our members who talk to high schoolers about clinical research, because it's not just, you know, understanding what it is to have a career in clinical research. It's also giving that information so people are aware of their options as, you know, patients, if you ever fall into that category, or, you know, talking to your family about it. And so I think that's a great way to end, you know, the questions that I have. Daniel, I don't know if you want to open it up to the audience, or we can look through the chat to see other questions that people may have.
Yes, so this worked yesterday, so I'm hoping this will work today. But if you have a question, please raise your hand and we can just, okay, well, that was quick. Shalina. I felt like we were in a Family Feud and she hit that buzzer.
Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Shalina. So my question, you're talking about the CRC role dealing with data. Is there like a specific name for that? I know you guys mentioned something about regulatory.
So at my institution, they are called research data coordinators.
Okay.
And, you know, some different institutions have different names, but that is what they are at my institution. And so you primarily focus on data, abstracting data when the PI is ready to write a manuscript or something like that. And so you really focus. It's a lot of sitting in front of a computer, but you learn a lot.
Yeah, same at my facility. They're called data coordinators or data management coordinators. So anything with data and coordinator, you know, it's different at every site.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Right. Does anyone else have a question? Magdalene, forgive me for saying your name incorrectly.
Hi, my name is Magdalene. This is more so of a comment. So I'm starting my new position as a CRC in the emergency department at Mount Sinai in New York. I just wanted to know if you guys had any like tips or anything, advice you guys could give me, because I'm really excited to start this position. I just graduated and I'm getting my master's in epidemiology and biostatistics. So I just wanted to know if you guys had any tips for me as a newbie in the industry.
Well, first of all, congratulations. And wow, you go, girl. That's amazing. So my advice to you would just be, like we were saying, absorb as much knowledge as you can. Always don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask as many questions as you need, because it's, you know, if you don't understand, no one else is going to understand, because they're going to all come to you for questions. Make sure, you know, that your pen and paper, or however you take notes, however you stay organized, is going to be your very best friend. And, you know, just enjoy, and remember that no study goes perfectly. So if you can kind of remember that, and, you know, just keep pushing forward and keep understanding as you go along, it'll be a great experience.
Yes, actually, someone said in the comments what I was going to say. If this is your first role in clinical research, learn how to read a protocol. That is very important. So we say at my institution, the protocol is like a Bible. You want to read it and you want to study it. And so it was very helpful for me. When I got a new protocol, I would create tabs for it, because the protocol is broken down into sections. It may be a section on documenting AEs. It may be a section on doing imaging and vitals and every single thing that you're going to do and how it has to be done. And there's also a section in there that is a schedule of events. You may want to take that schedule of events, print it out, learn it, because you're going to have to do things the way that it says to do it. And then I saw where someone put about the pocket protocol. Usually you have your big protocol and then you have a smaller version of it. Take it, highlight in it, whatever you have to do to learn it. But, and also like, and if the protocol is not easy to understand, because sometimes they can be very wordy, have a lot of medical terminology, you may want to read the informed consent. I believe that informed consent is written at like a 5th grade level. And so you may want to read that. That might be easier for you to understand. That was one thing I did. When I first started, that medical terminology was not my friend, but I was able to understand that informed consent. And the informed consent is going to go over every single thing that that patient needs to know. So that's a very good, helpful hint.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nicole.
No, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, when you guys say recruit, and I can't remember her name, but she gave her strategy on recruiting. Where are you? I mean, when you say recruit, are you guys recruiting from a pool that was already created? I mean, where are you, when you say recruit, where are you getting the people from?
For my institution, we have a clinic and we have patients. We have about 17 to 20 physicians, and each of those physicians have patients. And so we are recruiting those because they have to meet inclusion and exclusion criteria to even qualify for the protocol. So you want to make sure they qualify. That's very important. And so, so we are going into that pool of patients from our clinic. Now that can differ depending on if you're working, you know, like I work at a hospital, you know, Laraz, you know, she can explain hers, but that's how we do it.
Okay, so you're recruiting basically within in-house.
Yes, but not everyone is like that. So if someone else has a different experience, please share.
Yeah, we recruit from databases. So people who've done previous research studies before. And also, so when I was at Hopkins, we had a database of, you know, just Hopkins patients that had done research studies before. At the VA, they have their specific research subject pool. But then there are also studies where you can actually go out and you post around town They're posted online, they're on the, the clinic website, and, anyone is welcome to come and screen for the study. Now, that doesn't mean that they will be eligible for enrollment. However, visibility it's one of the good ways to recruit subjects, depending on the protocol. And as Jennifer was saying, the inclusion and exclusion criteria.
Okay.
Yeah, there are patient recruiting agencies. So a lot of times that recruitment material needs to be approved by the IRB before you can recruit patients. So there's different ways. Every institution has their own method of recruiting. So it all depends, honestly.
Okay, so a lot of times the recruiting agency already have the subjects ready to go, and we just pretty much do everything after that in reference to the clinical research coordinator?
It depends. So the study that I am on, they help the sites do the recruitment, but depending on if the site wants to contact, so they'll send them referrals. So once they recruit the patients, they'll have the referrals, and it's either the site's responsibilities to contact referrals. We monitor, okay, this site had this many referrals. How many days did it take the site to reach out to the referral? So it's different, I would say each study kind of has their different way that they would want to recruit. If you're trying to recruit women, or you're trying to depending on who you're trying to recruit and what your target audience is of your recruitment, you can ask for assistance with the recruiting agency, but it all depends. Some sites don't want any help with recruiting, but we have that option available for them if they want any help with recruiting.
Okay. And I think a lot of sites don't want help with recruitment because you get a lot of patients who don't even fit the minimum criteria, and it takes a lot of time to screen patients. And then depending on the protocol or the sponsor, you have your screen fails, and you don't want to have too many screen fails, because then it kind of looks like, well, what are you doing to even set yourself up to ensure that you're getting the right patient population for these studies? And sometimes sites don't get paid for the work that they're doing for screen fail unless they have a certain amount that are either screen failed and then or who are enrolled. So it takes a lot of time to review patient charts and making sure that they're eligible for the study. So it depends on the type of study. It depends on the patient population that is at the site, or the patient population that the physicians already have a relationship with, because I think that helps. So,
sometimes as CRCs, the only people that are allowed to recruit patients are the investigators. So in a way, they kind of have already pre-screened. So if the study is everyone, not everyone, but like they're looking for people with heart disease, the doctors know their patients that have heart disease. And so, if they already have a rapport with that patient, they can kind of already weed out certain medical conditions that they know of, and it makes them eligible even more for the inclusion exclusion criteria. And it kind of makes the subject sometimes a little bit more comfortable with even participating in the research to begin with.
Someone had left a message for me in the chat. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the first name or see it well because I'm on my phone, but last name was Doe. And so I just wanted to answer that. She asked about transferable skills, I believe. If you're still on, could you ask the question? I'm going back and forth on my phone. I'm not sure if she's still on.
Yes, I'm still on. I just didn't want to put it on because my son is yelling.
Okay.
But yes, I was just trying to figure out, because I know this is something that you had stumbled upon, but coming from the admin side and healthcare, what skills do you feel really truly helped you in transferable to clinical research?
Well, definitely working in admin, I was organized and I had great communication skills. But honestly, once I transferred over to research and I got into the field, I just kept learning things as they came. Sometimes you just have to to experience it, to learn from it. And so definitely organization and, you know, being an active listener and organizational skills, but I learned so much more once I learned. So don't think you have to come already. You're going to learn as research.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was going to add on to that. I think being a good communicator and working on a team and being able to, you know, work individually on projects, I would say being able to initiate, like, or I would say escalate different things, like, you know, a lot of times some people, if they have an issue, they kind of keep it to themselves, but knowing when to ask for help, I think is really important also. And not feeling like you have to carry everything yourself, like really utilizing your team, especially in clinical research, because you're not going to know everything. I remember when I was a CRC, every day, like I would learn something new, or I was like, oh, I didn't know that, you know, I could do it this way. Or so it is definitely a good foundation, I would say, in the clinical research industry. Like this position, once you become a CRC and you know how to do your job well, you really can transition to any position, because that really laid the foundation for you to succeed in your other positions in clinical research. Okay, so I know we're a little bit over time. We'll probably take 2 more questions, probably Kayla and Jacqueline. So Kayla.
Hi, ladies. So I guess my question is more so I'm totally green to the CRC role. I just moved into this position 2 weeks ago, and I'm working for a physician that is the PI, and it's a team of 1. So it's just me. I'm apparently the first CRC that has worked for him or under him or with the clinic and the study. And with him being a full-time physician, he's seeing patients all day. I'm trying to figure out, I'm having test kits come in, medications come in. There's different, the sponsors calling on the phone saying that there's people that need testing and things as such. And I'm asking him questions, but he's not really giving me any feedback. Mind you, this is also a contract CRC position, so I'm only here for 6 months. I'm a little confused on, like, with the, I guess, the lack of training or taking these certifications and doing these skills. So I guess what would be some advice on what would be, I guess, the best steps in my case specifically, just because, like I said, he is a working doctor and he is taking clients and patients all day. And then here's me, the little CRC that's like, hey, this is my first couple weeks here, and I haven't really learned anything in my role. He's actually bringing me into doing my nursing more so status of taking samples and things as such, but I'm not really utilizing my role and what I was brought here to do. So would there be any advice for that?
So one, do you have a protocol that you have to execute right now?
Yes. So I've read the thing front and back, side to side, but his response normally is, and he's a super sweet doctor, love him to death, but he's just like, call the sponsor and see, ask so-and-so. She's really nice. She'll let you know. And right now she's out of the office because she just had surgery. So it's kind of hard. Like, I don't really have anyone to ask these questions to. So I'm just kind of trying to do what I can so that I'm not being dormant.
Right. So yeah, so it's a lot of information. You actually are getting started how I got started. So because we don't really have too much time in the chat, I will get your information because it's a lot to discuss and a lot of different things are going to be thrown at you every single day. And unfortunately, things with the PI probably won't change. You're just going to have to adapt around it and come up with certain tricks, I would say, to kind of figure out how to get your deliverables and what you need done. So I'll discuss that with you. And unfortunately, this is how a lot of people end up in the role, you know?
Oh yeah, most people get thrown in.
Thank you.
I got thrown in. I felt like it was a initiation. I got jumped into clinical research, and a lot of times because they're trying to fill the roles so quickly, you don't always get the training that you need to be successful to do your job. So let's see.
Sink or swim.
Say it again.
I said sometimes it's sink or swim.
Yes,
which is unfortunate.
Yes. So,
but that's why we're here. Black
Yes,
women in clinical research, Black men in clinical research, minorities in clinical research. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and a lot of us are very willing to answer questions and provide support where it's needed. So don't be shy when you ask questions in the group, because it's a lot of people who are very happy to help.
Okay, so I said Jacqueline, so go ahead, Jacqueline.
Okay, hello guys, how are y'all doing tonight? I had a question. I guess my question really is, so I have a background in medical laboratory sciences, and I've been in the lab for, I don't know, about 8 years in terms of like working in level 1 trauma centers, doing all of that sample collection, test analysis. And as I'm trying to kind of transition into like the clinical research space and like apply for different jobs, I feel like I keep getting hit with rejections, and I'm trying to figure out, because when I talk to people, they're like, oh, you would be perfect as like a CRC or even like IRB regulation or pharmacovigilance. And so I apply for these jobs with my resume, but like I keep getting like shut out. So I'm like, is there something I'm not doing, or do I have to, do something extra? I have the GCP, what's it called? The certificate and everything. I took the course, and I'm just like, what else do I need to do?
Are you connecting with people who work for those companies to be referrals for you?
And still nothing.
And then you're able to talk to the recruiters.
You said what happened?
You're able to talk to the recruiters and actually get them on the phone?
No, I haven't gotten anyone on the phone yet with that. That's my next step.
You're on LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm.
Connect. So the thing about clinical research is yes, it is definitely about your background, but it's more so about connecting to the right people. Okay. Because when we work at these jobs, we get insight into, hey, we usually get an email like, hey, we're going to have so and so many positions in this role. If you know somebody, make sure you refer them, or we could send you a referral link, to whatever specific job that you're interested in, because that actually pulls more weight than you just going onto the job website yourself without having that, referral portion to it. So I would say try and connect to as many of us as you can on LinkedIn, follow recruiters, chat with recruiters, say, hey, I saw this opportunity at this company. I see that you're a recruiter there. Can you give me a little time this week so that we can set something up and further discuss how my skills can work for this role? You're going to get a lot of rejections. I mean, even people who have experience are going to get rejected, but I think having that extra tool of connecting to people who are at the companies can help you.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a position called a clinical laboratory coordinator. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on where you're looking and the right words that you're searching for.
Right, because I feel like they see med lab sciences and they kind of like push me into that. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to get away from that and kind of like focus. And I feel like it's maybe since I'm not connecting with people like personally, they just kind of look at the resume like, oh, you'd fit for this. But I'm like, well, I'm not trying to do that. That's just what I've done.
And also look at the descriptions, the job descriptions of the roles that you're looking for, and see what skills you already have that can fit into that. So yes, you are, a lab person, but like, how can your skill set that you already have transfer over into what they're doing on whatever level that you're trying to get to, and add that to your resume? Don't lie, but just, see what experience you have at your disposal so that you can kind of put the pieces together for them. Because a lot of times people put on blinders and they're like, you're not going to be able to fit in this role. And it's like, come on, everybody is trainable. I'm intelligent. Put me in a game coach, right? So start looking at those job descriptions and adding it to your resume.
Okay.
Yes, you have to connect the dots for the recruiters. A lot of times you're like, okay, did you see my resume? Like, you should be able to tell that I can do this job based upon what's on my resume. But I noticed once I kind of took a look at my resume, and because I came from a lab background, but once I made sure that I was adding those transferable skills, and I didn't want my resume to look like I could just only do a lab position. So once you kind of tailor your resume or have someone else look at your resume, have a resume review, because a lot of times we look at our resume all the time. We think it's perfect. But then when someone else looks at it, they're like, okay, well, you left off a lot of transferable skills. You can add some of these transferable skills. A lot of times you don't realize it because we have so many jobs that we do. We don't realize that we didn't put all of these transferable skills on our resume to reflect, you know, the positions that we could possibly have. So having, you know, a second eye, a third eye to look at your resume, people who are in the position that you are in, that you want to be in, I should say, so that you kind of know, or sometimes people will even share their resume with you so you kind of know where you should be at as far as your resume should look. But I went from a genetics lab, didn't like it, but into clinical research. So it is definitely possible. I was rejected so many times, so don't get discouraged if you are rejected. It happens, but just know that, okay, there is a support system for you, and there's everyone here has put their LinkedIn and information that you can connect with.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
You are so welcome. I know we have ran so over our time, but I just want to thank LaRaj, Jennifer, Rashida, and everyone, brand ambassadors, and Jasmine. Jasmine's also a CRC that's in the chat and that's been answering questions. So please feel free to reach out to all of us. A lot of us have dropped our LinkedIn URL in the chat. I will leave the chat open for a while so that people can scroll through and connect with everyone. And then for the people who have additional questions, please feel free to put your question in the chat. I will save the chat and send it to the speakers. We'll all look at it and see if there's any questions that we didn't answer, and we'll send it out to everyone who registered for the event. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. You have a great night.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.